welcome to Bonita's Kitchen and thank you for joining us. What I'm going to be making today is a delicious batch of oatmeal honey bread. While we're staying home and staying safe during this pandemic, I thought it'd be nice for me to pop back in, make another bread recipe for everyone to enjoy and make. We got a lot of new bread makers out there and we got a lot of people that is interested in making their own during this time. So the way I'm going to approach this recipe for you today, not like the way I've made it in previous videos where we just jump in and just get started with everything measured. I'm going to measure it in front of you, showing you the exact measurements and just being very clear the way that you would do it if you're making it yourself. You're going to print off your recipe. I'll provide that there for you. You just go to my website, that's www.bonitaskitchen.com, hit the print button and it'll print that recipe off for you. Now this recipe that I'm going to be making today is only a small batch. It'll just be 2 loaves, or if you want to make a big loaf and a small round one, that's up to you. I'm going to share with you the size of my bread pans. I'm going to share with you the size of my bowl that I've been using for years. I get many questions on these things, and I think today, while we're making this oatmeal honey bread, I'm just going to talk about that. So let's get started. So before we start measuring things out, we want to make our yeast. Now right here, I got 1 cup of warm water in there. And I'm going to be putting in 2 teaspoonfuls of yeast. Now this is a traditional yeast. You can get fast rising yeast. You can get quick yeast, self-rise yeast. You can get so many different ones, and all of them is equally as good. You see, I got it measured out, a teaspoonful, and it's level with the measuring spoon. So you toss that in. I'm going to do 1 more. Level, just giving a little shake. Put it in. I'm going to have a spoon. I'm going to stir that around lightly. Then I'm going to be using a 1/4 cup of honey. And that's our sweetener in this one, because it's oatmeal honey bread. But I'm going to put the but there. If you are, as you can see, level with the spoon, pouring it in with the yeast, stirring it, because I want for it all to mix in through. If you're allergic to honey and you can't use honey but you want to make this bread, most certainly you could use sugar, but it won't be oatmeal honey bread. It'll just be oatmeal bread. So, and that's fine. So right now we got that stirred in. We're going to let this rise for about 5 minutes. Just going to put it to the side and we'll start talking about the rest. Of course, the yeast, after you opened a new bottle of yeast, date it on the top, store it in your fridge, and this will keep it the freshest and fresh longer. Also, we all know with our social distancing, we need to wash our hands all the time. And of course, we all knew that anyway because our parents told us when we were kids, so on. So again, this applies to making bread or cooking. Wash your hands before, during, and after. Now we're going to talk about the butter. Most of my bread recipes, I would say 2 tablespoonfuls of butter. Now my butter, I buy it in half a block, which is a half a cup, I should say, blocks. I just cut it in half like this and then cut it again. I call this a tablespoonful, but really it could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, but it doesn't matter, because just as long as you got 2 little cubes of butter like this and melt it at a warm temperature, that's all that matters. Don't worry about too much or too less. So I'm going to nook this now in the microwave. So of course you can see I got the butter nooked there anywhere from 20 seconds or so, just till it's melted. I'm going to put that to the side. We got half a cup of milk, and milk of choice, and it's warm as well. And I'm going to put this to the side. I'm going to bring in my bowl Now we're going to start measuring our dry ingredients. And I'm going to show you that. So what I'm using here today is Golden Crust. It's a local flour that we buy here in my district. This flour I got for like $3.99 a bag, so I only buy whatever is on sale. And it's a gluten flour. We're doing a gluten recipe today, not a gluten-free recipe. So I'm going to say your flour of choice. I haven't made this recipe with a gluten-free flour yet, so I can't tell you if it'll work the same. But for now, this is an all-purpose regular flour. You see, I got this heaping amount of flour in here. I don't want all that. I'm going to take a knife and just slide it over until it makes a flat surface like that. That's 1 cup, because this is 1 cup measuring. So I'm going to toss it in there. I need 2 of those. I'm going to be using 2 white, 2 wheat, and 1 cup of oats. So it's heaping when I picked it up. You can kind of shake it back and forth to take it off as well. But if you want to get it where it's totally 1 cup, that's what you would do. So toss it right on there. I'm going to also be using 2 cups of wheat. Now I have whole wheat flour. I got it into a container because after I open my bags, I usually try to put them in containers. This one here, same, give it a little shake. It's not enough. Take your flour again, pop it in there, shake it. If you can even it to a cup, you don't need to use your knife, that's fine. And that's a cup. So I'm going to pop that in there. So we're going to be using 2 cups of the whole wheat flour, leaving about half of a cup to mix your dough with when it starts to get a little hard to move, because you need to work your dough. I'm going to pop this in there, so you can do that with either the wheat or the white. I'm going to keep half a cup there. So that's all you need. So that's 2 cups of the whole wheat and 2 cups of the white. So I'm going to be using 1 cup, in the same cup of course, of oatmeal. And this here is same as roll oats. It could be any cut. I'm going to take it off as well. You shake it and level it off with your knife. And you can do this with all your dry ingredients, even your sugar, if you're using different size measuring cups. This is 1 cup of oatmeal. Toss it on into your flour. I wanted to do all the measuring here today to show you how I would measure to mix my bread, and because usually in other videos I like to have it all done in advance just to speed everything up, because again you don't want to be watching all of that. But this is why, because I get so many people say, how do you measure, what is the types of measurements, can you do it in ounces, so forth and so on. So this is 1 teaspoonful, and I'm going to be using 1 teaspoonful of sea salt. You could use regular salt. It's a little damp here today. We got it raining, so it's hard to pour out the salt. So a level heaping of 1 teaspoonful of sea salt. Toss that on into your dry ingredients. So after you get all your dry ingredients in there like this, you're just going to mix it on in. And I kept out half a cup of flour. It doesn't matter if it's the white flour or the wheat flour. It's only just to help mix it together when it becomes too wet. My yeast have been rising there for 5 minutes. You don't need to leave it any longer than that. After you got it risen, just take it and pour it right on into your mixture of dry ingredients. And that's 1 cup of warm water, half a cup of warm milk. I'm going to pour it in there because I want to clean out all of that yeast. And again, I'm measuring everything here on the spot today because I want to show you how I do it, and which makes it a little simpler for you. Plus, after you've done that, move all of your containers and everything away from you, just so you know you got it in there. This is the butter, 2 tablespoonfuls, a little bit more, it doesn't matter, and it's warm. Toss that on in with your ingredients. Now what I did is got another little small bit of warm water to rinse out those containers, put it to the side along with my flour that I got there, because I may need that to mix things together. Sometimes you need more water, sometimes you need more flour. This is corn syrup. We're going to be using 1 tablespoonful of corn syrup. Sorry about that, it's all thumbs. Just pour it on in. You don't have to be particular with this. And then after, just toss it on there as well. And corn syrup gives it a nice little shine on anything that you're making. It'll make it look nice. So I'm gonna let this, I'll put this out with my spatula after, but that's all you need to do there. And then start stirring it around. You're going to get all these ingredients mixed together. So pretty much all you're doing there now is using your spoon. If you got a KitchenAid, you can put this in the KitchenAid. Just work it around like this until you get all of the flour away from the sides. Now when you're using the oatmeal, you could also grate it. You can put it in there in small grates if you didn't want to use it in full chunks like I added. If you don't mind it that way, that's fine. I'm going to take this sticky dough off of my spoon. I'm going to be using my hands now, or one of my hands, and it's cleaned and washed, and we're going to mix all of this together now by hand. So at this stage, what you're doing after you've mixed everything together, so you need about a 5 to a 10 minute mix. You want to activate that yeast. You're going to push down on your dough like this, flipping it, doing the same on the other side, cleaning off the sides, making sure you're taking in all of the extra flour. Like you said, I put the water to the side just in case I needed it, but it don't look like I need it because this is a really good texture. So you're going to fold it inward like this, flipping it, pushing it down, keeping it moving so everything is worked in together like this. So I'm going to be doing a dusting of flour now because I want to take that sticky off, toss it over, and bring it in like this. So you just keep doing that until you know you got everything incorporated there together until it's into a bowl. Just like that. So then that's all you need to do after you've done that a few times. I'm going to flip it over. I always put the sign of cross on all of my dough, and then I cut a cross in the top, and then as this rises you'll see the texture and the pockets in between. Now I'll tell you what to do next. So of course after you've done that, the same as other videos you've seen me making bread, I put my lid on and then I wrap it. And I'll wrap it now, of course, and show you that. But I want to talk about this bowl. I've had many messages asking me the size of the bowl, where did I buy it. This bowl, of course, I got 20 years ago, maybe longer. And I bought back in Edmonton, actually, at the IKEA. You can get it online, and it's 7.8 litres is what the size of it is. And just Google Tupperware 7.8 litres and you will get this bowl. And if you send me a message, I can send you that link. But anyway, take your towel, wrap it over your bowl like this, tuck it in under. Now what we're going to do is put this bowl, I'm going to put it under my hood so that the heat from that will keep it warm, but if you've got a sunny window you can do that as well. Also, the break pans that I'm using, they're probably 50 years old or more. and I use them on every video. These are glass, but they've been used so often, they're now brown. Beautiful for baking with. They're 8.5 by 5. Regular size is 9 by 6 or thereof, around there. It doesn't matter the size of pans that you're using, because once you put the dough into it, it will fill out to the frame of your pan anyway. So meet me back here, I'm going to say in 20 to 30 minutes, but for videoing it'll be click back. But I'm going to put this in the warm spot, let it rise for 20 to 30 minutes.
I got a quick question.
Yes.
Just popped up there. When you say you're going to put it over in under the hood of your stove, of course you got to have your light on.
Yes, you'll need the light on, of course. Yes, my light is on there now. So put your light on, put it there just to keep it warm. But like I said, wherever your warm place is in your kitchen is where you should put it. Also, another tidbit that people ask us about is altitude. And sometimes when you're at a different level, like we're at sea level here in Newfoundland and Labrador, so when I put my bread to rise, 20 minutes to 30 minutes is more than enough. Maybe when you look, yours could be rising sooner, or you might need just a couple of more minutes afterwards. That's fine. And then we'll talk a little bit about the baking portion when we get closer to it. But just meet me back here when it's done. I'll show you what this looks like when we knead it down the first time. Okay, so we got our first stage of rising the bread over with, and what I'm going to do now is show you what that looks like. But before I do, we talked a little bit about stages at the in the last clip. What you could do, maybe you might only need one rise on your bread, because like we were saying about higher and lower altitude, which would make a difference in your bread. And I got a lot of questions about that. When I rise it the second time and put it into pans, they just go flat. So eliminate the second rise if you're in an area that is in a higher altitude. But for me and anyone that's at sea level, definitely do the 2 rising, because I find that very good with our breads. So I'm going to show you this stage, and then we'll knead it down. So this is pretty much what it's going to look like when it starts to rise on the first stage. As you can see, it's just a small bun of dough, because we're only doing a half of a batch. So all you're going to do now is take your fist and push down again like this, sprinkling a little tiny bit of flour if needed. I'm going to take it and flip it over, do the same on that side, just to deflate it, folding it in. And it's pretty much at this stage you might hear cracking sound, and that's a really good sign when you're making your dough and kneading it in like this. So that's all you need to do. You don't need to do 5 to 10 minutes, just a deflate, push down and fold in. I'm doing the same again, the sign of a cross and the marking on top. And that's all we need to do. So the nice big towel or a small blanket, put a lid on. If you don't have a lid, use a piece of parchment paper, just so the towel don't touch the dough. Again, we're going to wrap it and put it in a warm place. Now I did have a little tidbit of information from a viewer a while back, that they put their bowl in the oven with the light on, not the heat, because of course we don't want to catch fire to anything. But the light gives about 100 degrees Fahrenheit of heat in there, which I thought was a lot, but I know that when I turn on my light, and then after when I turn on my to preheat the oven, it shows up 100 in there. So just to let you know, it's quite a bit of heat that comes from a light. So that's a little tidbit of information. So meet me back here again. I'm going to let mine rise again for 20 to 30 minutes, and then we'll show you the third stage. Okay, here comes our next stage. Our second stage is over. We're going to put it into our pans to rise, and of course it'll be the same 20 to 30 minutes. And again, I spoke earlier that if you're in a higher elevation, definitely only let it go for one rise in the bowl and then one rise in the pan, and that should prevent your dough from collapsing. All right, I'm going to show you what this looks like, and let's get putting them in our pans. So at this stage, you see that the dough is after rising again, half of what it was at the beginning. You could just take the dough up, you don't deflate it, you keep it like this. Didn't mean to move the bowl, but get a little bit of butter on your hands like this, or you can put a bit of flour. Now you're after washing your hands, of course, and getting all ready for this stage. Then pick up the dough and cut off a nice chunk. And you can see there the texture in the dough. You probably see that, and this here. We want to keep those air pockets in there. We don't want to deflate it to release that for it to rise from start. We just want to take it then and fold it in under like this, making a little dough ball and putting it into our pans like that. That's all you need to do. Keep doing it. Then you take your dough again. Now, if you want to, you could put it all in one piece, or just put little dough balls like that. That's all I'm doing, but I'll do one with the one piece. And like I said, this just makes 2 loaves of bread, or you could make one big loaf and a small round one. And that's all we need to do there. So I'm going to put another little bit of butter on my hands. I'm going to take out the full piece like this, and just look at those air pockets in there. I mean, this bread is light, the texture is amazing. So you're just going to take it like this and scoop it in under like that. Put it into your pan, and that's your 2 loaves of bread right there. Okay, so I just wanted to rinse all of the butter off. So again, we're making 2 pans of bread. If you don't want to make 2 pans of bread and you want to only make one, freeze the other one. So you shape it into the shape you want it. Let it be 3 pieces like this of dough, or the one, and put it into a plastic bag, into a freezer bag I should say, and put it in your freezer and take it out when you want it. Just put it into the pan, let it thaw gradually. It'll start to rise, and when it rises, then you can bake it following the same method as we use on this episode. I'm just going to take a piece of parchment paper, because I want to cover the top of the dough before I put my towel over it. So again, touching base on this one, let it rise again for 20 to 30 minutes, and then doesn't matter how high it is, don't be alarmed with that, because when it goes into the oven, and we're going to talk about that stage after this is risen, and then I'll tell you with my altitude and with your altitude what you would do. So after your bread or your dough is finished rising, now we're going to preheat our oven. We're going to preheat it for 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to put the timer on for 30 minutes to start. If you need a little bit more, you could put it on for another few minutes, but depending on your oven, that's what it would be. Now, if you're on, this is anyone, I'm going to say that's at sea level. If you're an higher altitude, you can do a little bit more. You can put the temperature on for about 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes, and checking to make sure that your bread don't burn, of course, because everybody's oven is a little different. And the reasons for that is, when you're at an higher altitude, your bread, when it goes into the oven and it don't start to rise quick in the heat, it will drop. And what happens then, your bread comes out with that flat top And this is questions I've been getting. Why is my bread falling when it gets in the oven? So this gives you a quicker snap. The heat gets at the top of the bread. It rises it from the bottom up, but it stops it from collapsing. So I hope that's a little bit clear, and absolutely keep those messages coming in, questions and even suggestions, because we're open for everything so everybody can see. This is our dough now. This is all you need to do. I'm going to show you a little closer to see what it looks like. So as you can see, this is how much it rose up in that amount of time. I also pre-greased the pan on the inside before I put the dough in there so that it won't stick to the pan. So these are old pans, they're probably not going to stick. So I'm just waiting on my oven to warm up, and I just want to show you. This is my measuring cup. It just gives me the cups, half cups, and on the side here it do give ounces. So for those of you that is measuring your flour, this is a great indication. It gives you the ounces, it also gives you the cups. And again, level it off with your knife if you feel you're putting too much in. So I'm going to get my bread in the oven. So this is our last stage, so I'm going to show you what they look like when they come out of the oven. So again, just preheat that oven for 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes, or a little more or a little less depending on your oven, and anyone in a higher altitude 375 for 20 minutes, could be a little bit more. And then when mine is done, I'm going to show you what it looks like and cut into it, have a little taste. So our bread is baked now. I'm going to take it out of the oven and bring it to my counter and show you what it looks like. So of course I put it in the middle rack, on the middle rack in the center of the oven. So this is it. It's absolutely delicious. Slip them out of the pans. These pans are really hot, so I'm going to move them out of my way. And just look, even on the bottom is a nice golden brown, and on the top. So now let's put a little bit of butter on it. Like all of my breads, I like to put a little bit of butter on the top. But if you don't want to put any on there, that's fine. Just leave it off. And what I'm going to do now is cover it and put a little dish towel over the top, and just to let it rest for just a few minutes. Then I'm going to show you what it looks like on the inside. Of course, like all of my bread recipes and videos that I got, I've always made one in advance, and I put it in a freezer bag because I make more than I need, of course. So as you can see, there's one already in here, and it's a couple of days old actually, and it's nice and firm. And the inside of this one, probably show you this one here first, and I'm going to cut another piece off of this and a piece of the one that's just baked, which I always say leave it for a few minutes, but here in our house we can't leave anything. We got to cut right away. So I'm going to show you that. First, I'm going to be using a serrated knife, and I'm just going to cut. Now the bread is a couple of days old. I made just to show you what it would be like there. And if you want to keep it fresh longer, just freeze one loaf and then just have the one loaf on the go. So now I'm going to cut into a fresh loaf. Of course, I'm going to cut my favorite piece, which is the outer piece, and we call it the heel of the bread. This is freshly cut there. Just look at this inside, and very soft, nice bread. And it's a yeast bread, of course. I'm going to talk a little bit more about my yeast. I want to put a little bit of butter on this piece for you, just for you to see it melting. I'm going to be putting a little bit of raspberry jam on this piece here, like this. I'm going to show you that as well, what that looks like. Now this is what we would call a delicious meal. All you need is a cup of tea. So this is it. This is as good as it gets, and this is how easy it is to make your own homemade bread. Even here in this pandemic, we are, staying home and staying safe. If you can get access to flour, and this you've seen that I made with white flour, a little bit of wheat flour, and our oatmeal, which you can have any cut. Also, I did say that I want to talk a little bit about the yeast. When you're buying yeast, they might say self-rising, fast-rising, traditional. Sometimes it just says baker's yeast. I like to proof all the yeast in a bowl first with the warm water or warm milk, whatever you're going to be using. Because this way, if it don't rise, you can toss that yeast and make another batch. But if you put the self-rising yeast into your flour, mix it together, and find your bread is not rising, you got a full batch of bread that you're going to be tossing, and that would be a shame. So again, that is my method. I know every baker does it different, but right now we just focus on the way that I'm showing you this video, and I find it works for me. It should work for you. So I hope you enjoyed this episode today of oatmeal honey bread. And again, if you're allergic to honey and you wanted to use sugar, it won't be called honey on the bread, but it still be just as delicious. This is it, as good as it gets. And if you want to see more of our bread recipes that we got available there on Bonita's Kitchen, you can visit us on www.bonitaskitchen.com. You can visit us here on YouTube. Hit the link down at the bottom. It says see more, and it'll show you the recipe for this today. And of course, it's posted the same as all of our recipes is under the link. And the subscribe button is there if you haven't already done so. We do appreciate your support and watching each one of our videos. You can also visit us on our Facebook page, that's Bonita's Kitchen, and we also share other viewers' recipes and their bread making, plus some of their pictures from meals that they've made and tried from our channel. So if you wanted to do that, we appreciate it. Leave us a message there. So this is it. I hope you found our recipe helpful today. And again, you stay home, stay safe. We know that we're all in this together, and this pandemic hopefully will be soon gone, and my recipe will be still there for you to see. Send us any message you want or questions. I would love to help you, because we're on. We're ready to help. So from our kitchen to yours, thank you for joining us here today, and you have a wonderful day.
Join us by the sea, a journey in culinary, always an open door. Bonita's Kitchen to yours. Bonita's Kitchen, to yours.